Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like bloodstain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc., or their email, tim@tcorbett.org. That's tim@tcorbett.org. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And we are shaking all of our good luck, Gree.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Disaster has happened.
A raccoon bone escaped.
No, several raccoon peni are on the loose.
Now
this just in.
That's a headline right there. She says as she strokes her dormouse.
Yes. And if that sentence didn't faze you, you guys have listened to Crime Curious far too long.
Correct. We were talking about this earlier. I'm like, here, you take these penises and I'll take these penises. And all of a sudden we're like, that didn't even faze us.
I think we still have one absconded. I can't find it.
I see it. In all of his glory, he's down by your chair.
He really did get away.
Yeah.
Oh, come here, you squirrely little rascal. I got it.
Nabbed it.
Everyone will know all the raccoon penis bones are safe and back in their holster. I got to get a new bag.
We do. You know what? We should shove those in Freddo with the camel toe.
They do belong with the camel toe.
Yeah,
you're
think
right.
So.
Freddo, you're about to get bone times 4, buddy.
Been there.
And with that, let's transition into some horrible crime, shall we?
Excellent. Can't get worse than this.
Sure can't. I'm going to bring you an old-timey case. So for those of you who don't love it,
just
Megan's like, too bad.
Because I love them.
I know. And I've been doing this a lot to you, but it is unsolved.
Every time lately.
Lately, it's been a theme. I can't help what the people recommend.
Okay.
You know,
so
blame our listeners.
Was this recommended?
It was.
We have at least one other listener that likes old-timey then.
Mm-hmm. And I apologize because I actually forgot. What do you got going on over there? You have
I got a bone in it.
RSV? What's happening?
Found your raccoon bone, Charnell.
I thought the bag was getting thinner.
Just as dangerous as chicken bones for dogs.
It is. I apologize because I did not happen to write down the name. It's somewhere on my list, but I did not.
Whoever you are,
give credit. So
thank you for recommending this case because Meg loves them.
She absolutely does, and so do I. They're more fun to research because there's just time gives a little bit of a buffer distance in the emotional aspect.
Always mean to give due respect to victims and survivors. There are times that we can find ourselves being more humorous in a case where we have distanced ourselves from it.
Well, and although it's never okay to murder.
No.
I don't know that the women of the world will necessarily be as empathetic to the loss of this particular victim.
See, this is how we felt about our Australian female drug lords. Because it was the same with Miss Kitty and everybody. Like, yes, some people died, but they were involved in some bad shit, all of them.
In this particular case, it's just one man.
Okay.
And he has an interesting start to life and really kind of interesting life, but at the same token, from an investigation perspective, it's a nightmare because there's all kinds of people that could have possibly wanted this man dead.
He was well loved.
Oh, yes.
He was well known.
He well loved. Boy, that was like some foreshadowing that you didn't even know. Some foreskinning you didn't even know.
I do that to you all the time.
You do.
I dropped my mouse. Go ahead. Tell me. Give
all
it
right.
to me, girl.
Get your mouse in order, and let me tell you about a New York. This is an old-timey New York case. Think jazz music, fedoras with feathers, bright red lipstick, high heels, New York, that kind of fun. Flapper, New York, the kind that you would have thrived and probably did in a previous life.
Art Deco, New York.
Yeah. Oh, hey, we were just talking about that.
I know.
All right, let's first talk about the victim here. Megan, have you ever played bridge?
No, it's very hard. I've watched people play bridge, and my mom can play bridge, and of course my grandma used to. But
absolutely,
it is difficult, even watching, to grasp it.
I agree.
Like an out-of-stater trying to learn to play euchre.
Oh, you guys!
If you're from Michigan, the Midwest, and you ever tried to teach somebody to play euchre, at some point you just quit and tell them, go play Go Fish at the kids' table.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the time about trying to teach our Canadian friends how to play euchre when he had taken a gummy?
Oh, and fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Jason?
It is not our friend Jason.
Good.
Different friend. And apparently our gummies are stronger than Canadian gummies. And it hit that poor man faster than he knew. And
it's Michigan.
Then we tried to teach him euchre. No, that's like trying to teach geometry to someone who has never seen numbers before.
It is.
Hi. It was an interesting situation. But anyway, I've also never played bridge because I've watched it played and thought this is too complicated for me, and I like to enjoy my card games, and this feels like work.
Right.
And I've never really thought about where bridge first came from or how it came on the scene. But we have a guy, I'm bringing you, unfortunately, our victim today was kind of one of the first on the scene and was so good with the game that he was a published author about the game of bridge.
That sounds incredibly boring.
He made up for the boring part of his life with other extracurricular activities.
Okay, well, now I can see why.
Oh, let me tell you. He was born February 24th, 1873 in Cranford, New Jersey, to Joseph E. Elwell, and his name was also Joseph Elwell, just so you know.
There's always a junior.
He's a junior, and really from a young age, he was really good at cards and games and things like that. He actually was a student at Phillips Academy in Andover, and he began working as a Brooklyn hardware salesman as a teenager. He always had jobs, hard worker, like even from a young child, to then working in a hardware store. Smart, definitely not a guy that you would say is some sort of ding dong. I mean, he's intelligent. You don't get a lot of ding dongs these days.
I can't say that I've recently called anyone a ding dong.
I know, smart guy. So it was around the time that he started working at the hardware store that he learned to play a new up-and-coming game called bridge. It's now known as bridge whist or straight bridge to distinguish it from later versions. So just so you know, it's like the original, the OG bridge. It's slightly different from the bridge that we play today. Okay.
The OG bridge.
The OG bridge. And during the course of establishing young men's clubs in churches and whatnot is when bridge really came on the scene. So that's how he first started into the game and got introduced to it. He actually got so into it, it kind of started to consume his life. By his early 20s, he was winning at big stakes, like fashionable New York gambling clubs. Okay. So then he decided to take just his knack for it and intelligence. And I'm laughing because my dog just jumped on my lap and hit her head. And I know you guys could hear that. Okay. Hi, Molly. You're going to join. So anyway, so he's winning at these big stakes tables, okay, of bridge, if that's what we call them, tables. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he decides, listen, I am amongst all these wealthy people winning. What if I just start teaching them as well? Great. As like another side job? That's what he does. He starts to teach bridge to wealthy socialites.
Oh my God, it's like the poker tournaments that are on that you can watch where somebody comes in and is teaching like the celebrities and stuff to play poker.
That's essentially what he did.
Okay.
Now, he's from just I'm going to say middle class, but it was more
like lower middle?
It was like lower middle, okay? And then he really transcends the social status through this. He gets a lot of connections this way. In 1904, when he was 31 years old, an established bridge player, he married Helen Derby, who also really enjoyed the game and was really good at it. A year later, they had a son named Richard. Despite coming from lower middle class family, he had actually married up the social register because his wife was socially well connected. Her cousin, Richard Derby, which is probably who they named their son after,
of course,
had married Ethel Roosevelt.
No kidding.
Yes.
He's got major connections.
Exactly. So Helen was instrumental in helping him capitalize on his skills at card, and he quickly became the nation's ranking authority on bridge. Well, bridge whist, as it was called. And
OG bridge.
On auction bridge as well. Another form. Another, a slightly different variation from original bridge whist to auction bridge. Okay?
You're basically speaking German at this point.
I know.
It's okay.
Two different versions, So he became known as the Wizard of Whist, which I kind of dig.
It's a good name.
I know. I'd like to have something snappy like that behind my name. And he began to teach bridge. I didn't mean began. I mean, he continued to teach bridge to wealthy socialites and celebrities alike. He became so adept at it that early on, before he married Helen, he wrote 2 books on the game, pretty close to one another, called Elwell on Bridge and Elwell's Advanced Bridge, which became classics in their day for people to buy, very popular for them to buy to learn how to play.
Because if you have to buy a book to learn to play a game,
I'm out.
I'm probably out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So out. Yeah. I mean, and this time, bridge is really exploding as a popular pastime. And this leads him to create a really good friendship with Harold Sterling Vanderbilt.
Oh, now we have the Vanderbilts. We have the Roosevelts, the Vanderbilts.
And Mr. Vanderbilt actually later becomes one of his main partners in bridge.
No
They're
kidding.
very, yep.
He's well connected now.
He is, and now he's wealthy. We have now reached the point of him being wealthy, which is why Helen, at 31, was allowed, dare I say, to marry him, even though she had a higher social status.
Wow.
Because this is 1904.
She's clearly a spinster. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's in her 30s. Yep. She's not married, and it's in the early 1920s.
I think she is a couple years younger than him.
Yeah.
But not significantly, okay? As they come up, and like you said, he's well connected. Now comes from, early middle. That's not what I was trying to say. Like the middle class and now just moving up in the ranks here. Between his winnings, his tutoring fees, and the royalties from his book, they set up a home together in Manhattan, a very good part of Manhattan.
Yeah, they are really rolling it in.
Yep. His association with Vanderbilt gave Joseph Elwell entry to even more wealthy clients, and his position was enhanced even more by he publishes several more books, a couple of which were ghost written by his wife, Helen.
Oh, all on bridge, though?
Yes. Yep,
wow.
Still about bridge.
So popular, you need a ghostwriter for bridge.
I know.
This is amazing.
He had property in Palm Beach. He had up to 20 horses. He had 5 cars. This is the early 1900s. You're very, very wealthy at this point in time. Mm-hmm. However, what do we often see happens to man when they are wealthy, when they are popular? Their penis starts to control their life.
They think with the wrong brain.
And that's essentially what happens with Joseph Elwell. He becomes something of a philanderer.
Okay.
He enjoyed the finer things in life, which included the finer women in life.
All right. He became adept at his under-the-skirt skills.
He did. And he fancied some of his female students and acquaintances. And he did develop himself a reputation as being a womanizer.
All right.
Which, word will get around.
And in the 20s, they probably didn't care.
Yeah.
Other men didn't.
Other men didn't. But by 1916, his wife Helen took their son Richard and filed for separation.
Wow. And in, early 1900s, probably relatively unheard of. She was creating a scandal.
But she also was from a wealthy family.
And she didn't want to tolerate that shit.
Well, exactly. And she's going to be fine on her own. Her husband's wealthy. And essentially what happens, who wants to stay with a man who has several mistresses?
Right.
And we will find out, he was paying these were legitimate mistresses, Megan.
Like he was setting them up.
Career mistresses, something that I, should have done in life. Like I took a wrong track. I went the very Christian track.
You chose love.
I did. Like, why didn't I think of you could be some wealthy guy's mistress and he can buy you diamond bracelets,
set you up in an apartment in Manhattan, give you a car and a driver.
That's exactly what he does here. Yeah. Just I have too many morals for that. God dang it. Me and my social morals. So 1916, she files for separation because, who wants to have a husband that's got a bunch of mistresses, right? By 1920, she was negotiating a divorce. Now, this did not phase Joseph Elwell, who commonly went by JB, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that earlier. He's not phased. He just set aside $2,400 a year for his wife, as well as paying all of his son's expenses and moving on with his life.
Okay.
So he paid for all of his son's expenses. She's got herself a little alimony of $2,400 a year. That's not a month.
And she probably didn't necessarily need it because she was well set up on her own. But hey, he met his obligation even though he was a fucker.
Yeah, for sure. He did. He was still financially secure. The sales of his books alone were worth $10,000 a year. Remember, this is 1920.
Holy crap.
Which was, a fraction of his his total income. I don't know why I can't speak. Because he also had the tutoring fees and his winnings. Like, he's great at bridge. He's so good at bridge, he's writing books about it. So he's a contender. He wins big, high-stakes games.
Only so many people are going to buy books on bridge, though. Eventually, all the bridge players are going to be done buying your book.
One would think. The other thing that he has is that he really got into horse racing. As I mentioned earlier, that he had 20 horses. 20. Yeah. But what he does is, and some might have seen that as a vice, right? Because he's into horse racing. He could lose a lot of money there. What he ends up doing, though, is getting onto the other side of horse racing. Not the betting side, but the investing side of it. And that also helps continue his financial security. And while all of this is going on, he's also enjoying himself lots of women.
Okay.
He continues to invest his money wisely, following up on financial tips from his wealthy clients. He also
diversified?
Sure did.
Okay.
That's exactly what he did.
That's what he did.
Mm-hmm. He split his money up, Megs.
Okay.
Into horse racing. Like I said, not the betting, the other side of it between breeding and
selling,
investing.
Yeah.
He set up what was called the beach racing stables with horses supplied from a Kentucky stud farm where he owned a lot of thoroughbreds. So he's doing really well. Now, he had a partner with him in the horse racing field that was an expert in his field that was helping guide him. His name was William Peddleton. And here we are. By the time he's a bachelor, he owns a yacht. He has art collections. He has 3 separate cottage retreats. His primary residence is a 3-story house in New York on West 17th Street.
Oh, my.
Which doesn't mean anything to me, but it sounds fancy.
Oh, we are in upscale Manhattan.
Yeah, I own a 2-story, 4-bedroom house.
In the Midwest.
Yes, exactly. On the corner of a random street and another random street.
In a beautiful subdivision.
Yes.
With a pool. And a million birds.
So many birds that I love. Oh, God. Yeah, right? So it's just funny how as humans we care.
Hey, he measured success
classify.
that way
He
in
did.
Urban New York in the 20s.
Mhm.
I mean, that was the pinnacle of success.
It was.
He had managed to go from a lower middle class upbringing to rolling with the big high rollers and the big names.
Yeah.
The Roosevelts, the Vanderbilts.
The connections,
Yeah.
the wealth, the finer things. Now, Megan, remember you mentioned earlier about being a mistress and having your mister set you up
Yes.
with an apartment.
Well, didn't we both agree that in the 20s that would have been a good option for us?
Absolutely.
You don't have to be tied down to some man.
No,
Just
no.
live your
Just only
life.
when he comes a knocking.
I mean, there's something beautiful about that.
Exactly.
Oh,
the rest of the time you leave me the hell alone.
Is it my night?
Right. Fine. Oh, God. Well, what Mr. Joseph J.B. Elwell did was he had a special guest boudoir for female guests in his home.
Oh.
It was luxuriously furnished, and he tended to entertain a lot of glamorous showgirls,
Okay.
fashionable divorcees, wealthy wives. Listen to the words I'm saying.
They got theirs too.
And title women of all social statuses here, okay?
Okay.
It was, like I said, the finer things in life. So these are women who are socially statused.
Yeah, he has women of class.
Yes, exactly. But also, I feel that comes with some potential dangers.
It does, because there are people that may not want them frequenting his boudoir.
Right. Quote from one of his friends, L.H. Green, said, quote, "He was a man who exercised a remarkable influence over women. He was cold-blooded to an extreme, which instead of repelling his friends of the opposite sex, seemed to attract them all the more." Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't love a bad boy?
Right?
Right? Emotionally distant, fucking Peter Pan syndrome. I'm your friend. Oh, I can fix you. You can't fix them.
No. But also, this is what I want to pose. Who's to say these women aren't exactly the same?
Okay, fair.
In a society of this time, we never thought that women were capable of the same type of mentality as men.
Well, women raised in that particular environment of that high of class and being surrounded by this their entire, and they're independent, and they can be because they have the money to do so. Totally could be detached in the emotional kind of love realm.
Absolutely.
Easy to detach yourself from your marriage for status to your husband to find
Right.
this bad boy to hang out with.
Well, and this is a time where, we're still in your dad has to approve and sign to allow you to marry. And is there a dowry? And so why wouldn't you have the mentality of, what can you give me?
Right.
And I will give you what you need in return. You just want a mistress to stay in this fancy, luxurious boudoir for a while? Sure.
I'll hang out.
Mm-hmm. So despite his growing reputation of basically being a womanizer and a cad, there's not any reports of threats of violence or any threats against his life. If he was worried for his safety, it was never known. And it appears that he kind of didn't give a fook about what people thought of him, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, he's got enough wealth to just not care. On the evening of June 10th, 1920, he's 47 at this time, J.B. Elwell dined. This is what we know for sure. He dined at the Ritz-Carlton Club.
My goodness.
This evening.
Alone?
No. Oh, never alone. Who dines at the Ritz-Carlton Club alone?
I mean, I would. Right up to the bar.
That's
With a martini.
This evening, his female companion of choice was a woman named Viola Krause, who actually had just finalized her divorce that very same day, June 10th.
You got to celebrate.
Her sister, Mrs. Loishon, as I'm going to say,
Beautiful name.
Loishon, attended with her husband, Walter Loishon.
Oh, they doubled.
They did. And stuttering over here, Walter Loishon is actually a businessman connected to the show world. So remember I said he liked showgirls,
Yes.
things like that. You know, it's all intertwined.
1920s adult entertainment.
That night at the club, they encountered Viola's ex-husband, Victor von Schengel.
No.
It is, I promise.
Okay. I feel like I'm in a movie now.
I put an N in there. Let me try that again.
Victor Vaschengel?
It is Victor von Schengel.
Von Schengel.
Von Schengel. I'm sure I'm nailing that.
Nailed it.
Now, Victor himself, Mr. von Schellengel, Schlong.
Mr. Schlong.
Mr.
You're welcome. He has a name now,
I'm
too.
sorry, von. Don't forget von Schlong.
Mr. Von Schlong.
Yes, Victor von Schlong. That should be his name.
It is now.
It sure is. He was there with his own companion, a lady singer. Okay, so
they're both celebrating their divorces.
They are at the same elite Ritz-Carlton club. Okay, guys,
This
like
is
if you
no
can,
coincidence.
No, if you can picture this, Joseph Elwell is there with Viola Krause. She's just finalized her divorce that day. She's with her sister and her sister's husband, and they run into the von Schlongs. Yes. Well, Mr. von Schlong with his new lady friend.
They both moved on very quickly.
They sure did. Joseph and Viola, they ate, they drank, they were merry, and before they headed out to attend Florence Zingfeld's Midnight Frolic, which was showing at the new Amsterdam Theater's rooftop on 42nd Street. Okay? So they have a whole night plan. Mr. Elwell left New Amsterdam Theater and went back to his West 70th Street house around 1:30 a.m.
Oh, this is a late night.
Mm-hmm. Phone calls made to the property led investigators to believe that he was home sometime between 2:04 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. because Viola actually called him.
Oh, booty call?
I'm not sure. We don't know. She didn't say.
Because she picked up the thing off the wall and held it up to her ear and talked into the little microphone thing and said, Joseph, did you make it home okay?
Connect me to Joseph
What
Elwell's
you
house.
wearing?
Mm-hmm. Further phone calls were made throughout the early morning hours, one of which was made to his stables in Far Rockaway at 4:30 a.m., which a lot of accounts said this was an unusual hour, but I don't know. 4:30 a.m. for a horse farm is not an unusual hour.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you.
You think they might have been starting to
Yes.
feed and muck and stuff?
It is June, so the sun is rising at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Horse farmers, many times, get out there just as at sunrise and really start working their horses.
Okay.
So to me, this wasn't like a gigantic red flag
Why would he be calling?
Well, perhaps he maybe had some stuff to check up on. If they had races the night before, he may have wanted to check up on how his horses did. It's not unusual if you're in the horse racing industry if you're traveling far away with your horses to not even get in until 4:30 in the morning after a night of racing. Didn't necessarily seem odd to me, but investigators are looking at this saying 4:30 a.m. is a really unusual hour for him to call his stables. And so maybe he was in trouble. Maybe this was a matter of urgency and he was trying to set something up. He then presumably makes another call to a number in Garden City. And his last call occurred around 6:09 a.m. At around 6:30 a.m., the milkman noticed that the vestibule doors to the house were wide open when he made his delivery. So the milkman delivers his milk at 6:30 a.m. and is like, that's weird. Those vestibule doors are
shouldn't
open.
be open.
Yeah, but I'm going to drop my milk off just the same. Everything else seemed in order. And Joseph Elwell was actually seen bringing in his own mail and newspaper from his doorstep. And this was the last time anyone saw Joseph Brown Elwell alive, or JB. at around 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize. Newspaper arrived and was picked up about 7:30 a.m.
So that was the last time he was seen.
That was the last time that he was
And we know
seen.
he made a couple of early morning phone calls.
Yep. He doesn't appear to have went to bed from his night out.
No.
Truly. Which is also a little bit of a red flag. Like, what was something going on? Were you trying to make arrangements for something? Was someone with you? Like, what's going on that you're making all these phone calls?
Him calling his stables, if we can find a pattern that was something that he typically would do, especially early in the morning, because they're going to know if it's weird for him to have called at 4:30, and they're going to know, no, that's normal. Before a race, he calls. But why is he slumming it calling Garden City, New Jersey?
Don't know. At 6:09 a.m., we're not sure. But we know at 9 o'clock, his Swedish housekeeper unlocked the front door to begin her usual cleaning and breakfast duties.
Was Helga pretty?
Her name was Marie Larson.
Oh, okay.
And and I wouldn't call her unfortunate looking. She's a pretty normal 1920s looking Swedish housekeeper.
She's an immigrant trying to make it.
As if I knew what a typical Swedish housekeeper in the 1920s would look like.
If we ask any of
ugly.
our male listeners what they picture a Swedish housekeeper to look like, I bet we get a lot of shares on our page.
I'm going to say she probably doesn't look like that maid costume.
The black and white maid costume with the feather duster. That is
right.
exactly what I'm thinking.
No, but she wasn't an unattractive woman. I'm pretty sure that J.B. Elwell's not going to ever surround himself with unattractive females.
Right, fair enough.
So Marie notices that the vestibule doors are closed. Okay, so the milkman delivers the milk at 6:30. They are open. And now at 9 a.m., they are closed. And she brings the milk in from the front door. Interestingly enough, I find it weird that JB didn't bring his own milk in. He went out and got the paper and the mail.
He didn't want to carry it.
But he's not going to carry his milk. Won't that sour, sir? Do they deliver it cold?
First of all, he doesn't even know where his kitchen is. And he has somebody to cook. So he was waiting for the housekeeper. It was probably her job to bring the milk in and then begin making breakfast.
That's a good point. So nothing seemed amiss. Marie begins her duties. Upon entering the living room, she notices Joseph Elwell sitting in a chair. She greets him. "Good morning, Mr. Elwell." He did not respond to her greeting, so she approaches him, and she is horrified by what she finds. Joseph Elwell is wearing his pajamas with his newspaper folded in his lap. However, he was not quite recognizable.
Because he didn't have a face.
Well, he had a face. He didn't have his wig or his dentures on.
Oh, okay.
Not on.
Gotcha.
She's never seen him like that. No
one
female
knew.
has seen him like that.
So he usually had a wig or a toupee of some kind.
He's only 47 years old, but I guess had balded, perhaps
and
poor.
lost his teeth.
Yeah. Poor
Remember
dental habits.
his upbringing. He didn't become wealthy until later.
Correct.
So,
Yeah. So he could afford dentures.
I don't think with the wealthy at that time, oral care was always something specific. I mean, have you seen some of the British monarchy from years past?
Yeah, absolutely. So she doesn't recognize him right away because he's bald. He's toothless.
She's like, there's an old dead dude here.
Well, he has a bullet hole in his forehead. Okay.
Oh, that's hard to see too.
He had been shot point blank by a .45 pistol, but he was not dead.
Yeah.
He was still clinging to life.
Oh my God.
So Marie phones police. She calls for help. And the doctors come in. I mean, this is old timey.
They bring the doctor to the response.
Doctors come in, and Joseph is rushed to Bellevue Hospital.
Okay.
Despite the best efforts of the doctors, he is pronounced dead several hours later, never having revealed who shot him.
Well, he had a neurological issue.
Absolutely.
There was a bullet in his frontal lobe.
There was. And so that's going to maybe complicate your ability to express the words.
Yes.
Let's get to the investigation. These poor investigators, okay?
Okay.
The murder caused a sensation, of course, and there was definitely a lot of publicity on it, with the New York press descending upon Elwell's Manhattan home. The New York Times covered it almost daily until the end of July. The Chicago Tribune published 18 articles, and the Los Angeles Times published 12. This is coast-to-coast news,
Oh, yeah.
you guys. The New York Times called it, quote, Among the most remarkable in the annals of crime in this country, the victim was not robbed. There was no struggle. No papers were disturbed. No one was seen to enter or leave the house after 3:45 in the morning when Elwell himself went in. The case, end quote. The case became national interest, with many speculating about his death and scrutinizing the details of his scandalous life. The NYPD set out working the crime scene, hoping to solve it quickly, but they do not. There was no sign of a struggle. It appeared that Joseph Elwell had retrieved his mail and newspaper before going and sitting in his chair, where he was then shot at point-blank range with the .45 caliber Colt pistol, the type that was issued in the Army.
Oh.
Yes.
Do you feel like somebody could have been like, Joseph, sit in the chair, almost execution style? Maybe he was caught off guard and surprised, but it totally could have been, especially Army pistol, kind of a sit there in that chair, hold your paper, look at me, gone.
Like very militant
Yes.
and affirmative about it.
Yeah.
They were able to ascertain, perhaps, but how they decided that this particular pistol was one that was issued from the Army is because there was a cartridge located on the floor.
Okay. Somebody did not clean up after themselves well.
This is curious to me because there's the cartridge on the floor as well as a single bullet that was placed on the table in front of him.
So interesting. It's not a hit then.
Blood splatter analysis suggested that the bullet had been fired from right in front of him. Okay, so this person was standing right in front of him. This
Yes.
wasn't a sneak attack from behind, anything like that. They've also determined that the bullet was fired either from the hip or from a crouched position of an individual rather than someone standing and firing down at their seated victim.
Ooh.
Or is it someone just very short?
Interesting.
I'd like to know. How
How
tall
tall
is
is-
the chair?
I say, how tall are the
is
women?
Elwell? Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering if they're operating their investigation from assuming that,
A man.
a delicate female couldn't possibly execute a man like this, but having so they're looking at it from
Wouldn't
the
it
perspective
just
of a
be
man.
like someone of our sex to shoot somebody, then take the cartridge, wipe it clean, and stick it on the table? There
Absolutely.
You go.
The cartridge is on the floor. The bullet
is
on the table.
I'm going to leave this there for you.
Remember, he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it does feel a little feminine in that, this didn't kill you, but it's gonna. Here's the bullet. The bullet's cleaned off.
Yeah.
And here it is on the table for you to see exactly what took your life. Oh.
A little kiss on the forehead, pat on the head, and say, you have a nice day, sir.
And then I can hear high heels clicking. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. That's just, perhaps I'm just glamorizing
Oh, we are.
murder here.
We are.
But we're going to get to the women. I have an actual number for you. So
Okay.
there's more here, but so it did make me wonder when I was reading, like, okay, you guys are deciding it was from the hip. He's sitting in a chair. So it's either from the hip of a tall man or woman or someone that's crouched. Have we considered that it might have just been someone that was, I don't know, 5 foot, under 5 foot, 4'11",
Yeah.
a petite woman? I'm thinking, Megan, if I stand up and with you in that chair, if I were to stand up,
Holding it at chest level?
yeah,
Agreed.
in chairs,
Totally possible.
yeah, chairs. I don't know what kind. We know he liked lavish furnishings, right? So I'm going to assume
It was a throne.
right. Like that's what I'm picturing. I'm
Tufted
like,
with his feet off the ground.
right,
And a footstool.
It's a king's like little. What are those types of chairs called? But
Like
they're
a King Louis.
yeah, they're taller.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. It was just a working hypothesis in my head. Anyway, a letter was also found from Elwell's stable on the ground and covered in blood. Now, remember, he called his stables at
Yeah.
4:30 in the morning, and now there's also a letter, okay? It didn't appear to have any, like, confidential information or anything of importance. It just, to the investigators, showed he got his mail
Right.
that day and had opened it and read it. There was still a smoking cigar located nearby. And Marie Larson was able to identify that this smoking cigar is the personal mixture that J.B. Elwell preferred to smoke.
So she's seen that smoking cigar before.
Yes.
And it would be normal for him to go out, get his mail, have a little cigar.
Have
Have a little cigar, have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But there was a second cigar that was found on the mantelpiece of the fireplace that was from a regular brand, just a regular sold brand, suggesting that Elwell may have smoked with his killer prior to being shot.
Yeah, and how many women smoked cigars then?
I don't know. Maybe some of them did.
I don't see a lot of historical photography with women smoking cigars.
No?
Little cigarillos and stuff like that, and those really long like cigarettes with the
right.
But I don't know.
An actual.
I mean,
actual
now it's
cigar.
common.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, hell, I'll smoke a cigar when we're in St. Martin because you can buy a Cuban and go hang out on the beach and
No, this makes me question of. Perhaps we are dealing with a man. The other thing we're talking about height, who's to say that it wasn't a shorter man?
So
too.
Highly probable. My grandfather was born in, the early 1930s. Of course, he's passed now. Tiniest, shortest little man. He was barely 5 foot. My mother's father, clearly, because she's barely pushing 5 foot too.
Yeah.
Weighed when he went into the army, 115 pounds, and he was a featherweight boxer.
Oh my gosh.
So he was a tiny little human being.
Yeah.
Tough motherfucker, but
Right.
tiny little human being. And so, yes, of course there were tiny men then.
Well, and I think you have to be pretty tough.
Oh my God, it was a jockey for one of his horses. Solved it.
I know. I wondered that too.
Okay.
Maybe he started sleeping with the jockey's wife. Maybe he, gypped him out of some money.
I mean, did a male friend spend the night there and wake up with him and have a cigar in the morning? And
Also
then said,
possible.
You better not tell my dirty little secret.
Mm-hmm.
Bang, bang.
Interesting theory. I know. Especially in 1920.
Because we had recently covered a story about old Hollywood where it was taboo to be anything other than heterosexual.
Correct.
And clearly people in high society do things without care, but every once in a while there's somebody that wants to blow your secret.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended.
Blow all the secrets. Yes.
I'm a terrible person.
There was no tampering to the doors. All the windows were firmly shut from the outside, secured with iron gates, and there's no reports of anyone entering or leaving the property. Even more curious, Megan, J.B. Elwell had been shot dead, well, mostly dead, from inside a locked room. He knew his killer. Absolutely.
Could it have been the housekeeper?
She gets on the list.
How tall is she?
That part I do not know.
Because
it's hard to
they
find.
They didn't care or think about that stuff at the time.
No. And we'll get to her next. When dusting for fingerprints, the only ones that they found belonged to the housekeeper Marie.
Yes.
Or J.B. Elwell himself.
Okay, and both of them had a valid reason to have their
For
fingerprints
sure.
all over the place.
The possibility of Marie Larson's involvement was never taken seriously by the police because of the fact that she actually was well paid in her position. He paid her very well, and she is the one that called upon discovering him when he was still alive for help to save his life.
Okay. Fair enough.
I do get
I'm not
that.
saying they couldn't have been having some type of a torrid affair. He was molesting the staff.
Sure, absolutely. Or she's seeing all these women coming and going and she's in love with him or
Maybe.
whatever. You never know. And a lot of the newspaper articles did publish, I do feel bad for her because the public kind of really went after her at first.
She's not a person of society, so it's easy to take her and be like, oh, let's just pin it on her, and then everybody feels safe again with their common practices in the upper societal echelons.
Yep, exactly. So aside from this evidence, okay, and there's no weapon, no footprints, no evidence of a struggle, nothing except that large caliber shell and that tells them what kind of gun was used. His personal possessions, like his jewelry, his cash, his paintings, all of them were untouched. So robbery is discounted as a motive. And it's becoming obvious to the police that this is a personal vendetta, right? Upon further investigation, detectives find that J.B. Elwell had a collection of women's underwear, apparent trophies of his many conquests, And he had so many mistresses that he had to keep record of their names and addresses. Now the police are like, okay, we've got a man who has, there's so many leads of who could possibly want him dead. In his desk, they found a card index containing a host of entries with pet names and telephone numbers.
Ooh, the black book.
It was the 1920s black book. In all, it was like a Rolodex thing. All the yeah, that's what it sounds like in my
ratings
mind.
after it too.
Yeah.
Pig.
Oh God, probably.
Oh,
I mean, he
yeah.
did have their pet names documented. Ugh, ew, gross. In all, 53 women were recorded.
Okay.
The police discovered dozens of letters, photographs, and a pension list recording sums paid to discarded mistresses.
Oh, amazing.
My
I'm done with you now. I'm going to pay you this. You don't disclose my indiscretions.
Correct. Many of these
Bye-bye.
women were rumored to have been given keys to J.B. Elwell's house, while officially only J.B. and the housekeeper had access, according to Marie. Police worked through the list of women, angry husbands, and even Elwell's own wife.
Okay.
Well, ex-wife. Well, I mean, she had filed for divorce in 1920, and they had settled on all of that. I don't know that it was actually official yet, because
Why would she want him dead?
1916 is when she filed for separation. 1920 is when they were negotiating a divorce, and they had settled on the amount that she was going to give him.
So
Or,
it wasn't
you know,
final. His wasn't final.
I couldn't find a definitive answer. There was conflicting information on, but it was 1920
Right.
that they're negotiating this divorce. So for me, that and the police do make her a suspect.
She clearly should be a suspect. I just am not vibing it. Like, why would she want him dead? It seems she's fine with the divorce. She's taken the kid. She's getting a large amount of alimony, other than if she really loves him and really was super upset about all of his philandering.
Oh, she is.
But she already found the way out.
Let's look at it from a different perspective, though. She doesn't need the money because she
No.
comes from a wealthy family. She ghost wrote a lot of his books that he's collecting $10,000 a year royalties on. And he's, philandering, cold-blooded asshole.
Yeah, I get it.
Perhaps she does. Maybe she has the biggest motive. Like, I had this child with you and you couldn't stay faithful.
She does on paper have the biggest
True.
motive.
True.
Well, her equally with the significant others of the women he was sleeping with, because it's hard to separate.
Elite wealthy men.
Yeah.
Married women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Or men.
Sure.
Just throwing that out there.
Ultimately, police reported that they had over 1,000 suspects.
Holy shit.
Helen herself was soon eliminated from the inquiry.
Okay.
They cleared her, along with Victor von Schlong, which was the ex-husband of Viola Krause. Von Schlong actually had been present at the Ritz that night, and I had forgot this detail. The singer that he was with, they were newly engaged. Her name was Emily Anderson.
Oh, so he had been seeing her prior to his divorce finalization as well.
Yep, exactly. So he's happily moved on, although nothing really happened at the Ritz or, when they went and attended that Midnight Frolic show. There were reports of a disturbance at the Amsterdam Theater, and it did seem to be connected to Viola Krause calling JB at 2:30 a.m. But Viola was actually like, yeah, I did call him at 2:30 in the morning, but it didn't have anything to do with this disturbance. Sounded like, from what I could gather, there was no concrete information that I could say like, oh, someone approached Viola and started some shit, right?
Okay.
But it did sound like the disturbance really was just rumored tensions between humans. Okay. Nothing physical, nothing like that. So, but when questioned about it, Viola was like, no, that wasn't even what I would call a disturbance. So that's not why I was calling him. Now, despite being ruled out as a suspect, Marie Larson, the housekeeper, is rumored to have covered up some evidence for Viola Krause. When we say evidence, it's not necessarily evidence to his murder. It is more likely evidence to protect Viola's reputation.
I mean, she's going to have direct knowledge that Viola had probably been spending the night there and frequenting the boudoir.
Exactly. And while doctors, remember I mentioned earlier that doctors were treating JB Elwell in his house before, trying to save his life, they noted that Marie Larson removed from the sitting area that he was in, a boudoir cap, a pink silk kimono, and slippers that Viola Krause had left after one of her previous visits to JB Elwell.
Okay.
Okay.
She was really just trying to protect probably her employer and his guest.
Yes. Who's to say that Marie didn't enjoy the female company that was coming in and out of her employer's home?
Well, she was just used to it, and that was her thing.
Yes.
To clean up, to make sure your boss doesn't get in trouble.
This is a part of my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now she's out of a job, so maybe if she covers up for Viola by just having respect for her reputation, removing her slippers, removing her nightgown, removing her boudoir cap, all of the things that show she was there for sexual intentions, okay?
Marie had nothing to gain from his death.
No, not at all. So, but perhaps, Viola then could hire her as a housekeeper, knowing that she has decorum that way and will keep other people's secrets. And so I'm not saying
maybe she knows that Viola shot her and she's like, you go, girl.
Right. There's that too.
Who knows?
Women stick together, right?
We should.
We should. But I'm saying maybe she was doing that in the early ages. In
Okay.
early ages. I mean, 1920 isn't necessarily early ages, but before we had this whole campaign for, girl power and women sticking together.
Supporting each other.
Yeah. So the other thing is that they know that Marie actually telephoned Viola to let her know, I've removed the items from the room. They are hidden. And so your things are not going to be splattered across the front pages of the Societal Times.
Okay.
The press made mention of Joseph's last romantic relationship prior to Viola, naming her in the press only as Miss Wilson. And this woman was able to prove that she was not in the house on the night of the murder. Of the 53 women on J.B. Elwell's list, none were identified as viable suspects. Detectives also believe that the killer was a man, not just because the Colt 45 is heavy, but also because they knew J.B. Elwell was a very vain individual and he would never be seen by a woman without his false teeth and his hairpiece.
Right.
Which I think is a very important clue. I'm surprised he would let other men see him that way either. But with his love life failing to reveal a suspect, police looked into the possibility that his love of horse racing and associations with his bridge playing might have played a part in his death, all of which leads to another dead end. They cannot find anything nefarious going on.
Well, if there was a phone call made early in the morning hours to his stables, to the racetrack, and a man perhaps came over to engage in a conversation about whatever it was he was calling about, maybe something nefarious, maybe some type of an argument or a disagreement about a horse or money. I mean, perhaps it's somebody from the stable, and maybe he wouldn't have given a flying fuck if he wasn't wearing his wig and teeth at that point.
Right. Very possible.
And they had a cigar, shared an argument.
Shared a strongly worded discussion that ended in a Colt 45 to the head.
Wouldn't believe how often that happens.
Right. So in April 2000, nope, not 2000,
not
guys.
2000.
April 1921. So we are almost a year later. I do want to point something out about these dates, though. And I can't remember now if it was a general public episode or a bonus episode, but remember on Jason's birthday on June 11th, we did a long series of recording, and weirdly, the victim's birthday
was yours and his.
It was June 11th was her
his.
birthday.
Okay.
Yep. Technically, because I don't know if you caught the date, but June 10th is when J.B. Elwell went on this date with Viola Krause.
Yes.
He was technically shot June 11th,
I
1920.
keep bringing
Like, that's so bizarre that I would do those right in a row. It was a total accident. But I happened to notice the date and was like, oh my gosh,
the
this
crime's
is so
all
weird.
about Brain Bath Jason this month.
Gosh. He never knew he was so important.
I know.
And don't tell him because his head's big enough.
It is. It'll fall right off his neck.
It will. Anyway, April 1921. So we're almost an entire year later. Interest in the case had kind of waned at this point. And a man comes forward and he claims that he had shot and killed J.B. Elwell the previous year.
I hate when that shit happens because you know that for the most part, it is probably it's to be hyped up. It's somebody wants to make the news, probably mentally ill.
Exactly. And that's really what happens here. Police found that this individual was suffering from mental illness. He had absolutely no association link, not only to J.B. Elwell, but any of the other people that he palled around with.
Yeah.
Okay. British crime historian Jonathan Goodman actually wrote a book about this called The Slaying of Joseph Brown Elwell in 1987. And he offers the theory that the murder was an act of passion, most likely caused by his philandering. And I think that that's probably our best deductive reasoning that we can use at this point in time. Goodman's prime suspect was someone who attended the Ritz-Carlton Club and the Amsterdam Theater on the evening before the murder, who was later committed to an asylum, but was never investigated as a serious potential suspect by police. His murder, an impossible locked room mystery, is believed to be the inspiration of S.S. Van Dyne's 1926 mystery novel, The Benson Murder Case, which first introduced his famous fictional detective, Philo Vance, and was utilized, he actually utilized several facts about Elwell's case.
Oh.
So an author took this case and the fact that it's unsolved and created this fictional detective, and it really took off. But I'm not naming the suspect, the author from the 1987, the Goodman's, his prime suspect, because you really won't be able to speak about it because this particular person has never been committed, charged with or committed or anything. But really what Goodman's book points to is that there was a lead of a guy who regularly attended the Ritz-Carlton Club. He regularly attended the Amsterdam Theater. He was there that night, and he was later committed to an asylum, but he was never considered, a serious suspect.
Okay.
It's very possible that he had connections, or reasons to not like him with all of his philandering.
Interesting.
His apparently, a woman of his, wife, girlfriend, whatever, was on that list. One of those 53 people.
And you're not going to tell us the name?
No.
Why?
I'm not going to tell the name. Well, by
That's
the book.
rude.
The Slaying of Joseph Brown Elwell in 1987.
You love doing this to me.
Well, and really, we don't know. Should I be slandering some guy who was just named in a book simply because of the place that he was
He's
at?
a suspect. What's he going to do? Sue you?
Mm-mm. The police never considered him a suspect.
Oh, he didn't even make their list?
No. And so that's what Jonathan Goodman is pointing to, of like, he wasn't a serious suspect. Like, guys, connect the dots. He was there. He was regularly there. His woman's name was on that list.
Then anybody at the club or the theater is a suspect.
Correct.
And you mean to tell me that he hadn't slept with other people's significant others from the club or the theater?
I don't know.
With a list that long, he realistically had probably slept with all of his friends' wives.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or paid them to sleep with him.
Right.
Or spend time in his boudoir.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
Come experience the finest silk. Wear this pink robe.
Right. These slippers.
These fuzzy handcuffs.
Oh, gosh. He was considered one of the greatest bridge players of the early 20th century. J.B. Elwell is best remembered today not as a result of his passion and skill for the game, but due to the bizarre nature of his death and the enduring mystery of who perpetuated this crime and why. He's in a locked room. He knew he was familiar with his murderer. Truly. No one is seen coming and going.
No. He does not appear to have died in a jump scare moment.
No.
Like, he was just
Someone
sitting
had
there
time
chilling.
to light a cigar and smoke it with him.
Or after.
A little stogie. Oh maybe.
He was
because he was still
cigar.
alive. What if
Yeah.
he shot him and was just like, I'm going to light up this stogie right now and just keep talking to you. Clean off the bullet.
While you're talking the whole time, making it
Yes.
super psycho-y.
Yes.
Well, JB,
You know,
I'm
psycho-y-
sorry it had to end this way as he's polishing the bullet,
For sure.
putting it on the table.
If only you hadn't stooped my wife.
Right. He grabs JB's cigar to light his own instead of a lighter, puts it back down and sits there and blows some smoke rings
Right
in
into his face. Yes.
I should write this shit.
This might have been what happened. We don't know that it didn't
don't.
happen, Megan. That is as plausible of a theory as our female that, you know, and hell, maybe the female was even like, I'm going to light this cigar, place it on this mantle to make it look like a man's did this because I'm on this list of 53 women.
I'm going
and
to
I
take
don't
off
wanna
your
be
fucking
seen.
wig and your teeth and throw them someplace else.
I really did want to know if I think that they found the wig and teeth in his house.
Okay.
But let's go by the theory that these mistresses did have keys to his house, even though Marie believed only her and JB Elwell had keys to the home. Okay. Let's say that a mistress did, or in her time wandering around the house, found one and took it. Okay. Perhaps it is possible that a female showed up uninvited, right?
Let herself in.
Let herself in, took him by surprise. That's why he didn't have his teeth in his, you know, all of his get up on.
Good morning, JB. Looking lovely.
Yeah. Okay. And in what, you know, just had herself a little bit of a conversation with him and shot him.
It's very cold. I just don't know that
Maybe
that
she
makes,
took her husband's army gun.
I feel like it would have been more passionate than that. More harm even.
Unless she's just as cold and calculated as he is. I don't
Okay.
know.
And how was she scorned?
Mm.
I just do feel like it's more likely to have been a
A
man.
man that is angry
I
about
do.
his philandering.
It's what it feels like in
Mhm.
terms of the situation.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It does,
But I
somebody
wouldn't-
close to him, but it doesn't feel like a crime of passion, like a scorned lover type of thing. It
Yeah.
just doesn't feel like that to me.
Do you think it's over money?
My thought, which disagrees with that author who basically just speculated a person out of thin air,
Uh-huh.
is that if you take into consideration the call to his racetrack
Mm-hmm.
and a random call to Garden City, New Jersey,
Mm.
that it was some type of a business deal or somebody pissed
betting
off.
went on in Garden City, New Jersey at that time. He wasn't on the betting side of horse racing, though.
No, but it would
But-
even more. I mean, less than a betting bookie type situation, which I seriously doubt was an issue with him. People get pretty passionate about raising horses and siring
Oh, God,
stallions and the selling the investments. Maybe somebody got a bum investment.
True.
Um,
Or a bum horse. I mean, he was dealing with thoroughbreds from Kentucky. That
Yeah.
is the prime place where thoroughbreds come
no, I'm
from.
leaving for there tomorrow.
My niece lives there. Actually, she is a veterinary technician for a very big vet there
That's
that
amazing.
only works with Kentucky racehorses.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I know it's actually a scary, different world down there. Like,
and
they take that stuff seriously.
And
so
he's
it's very
involved in
possible.
it from
Yes.
a financial perspective.
He is. He very much is. So I can buy into that this felt, you know, more like a business transaction problem rather than a crime of passion.
Yeah.
But I also just wouldn't put it past the intelligence of a woman to make it look like a man, to keep her emotions out of it and make it look like a man did this. Whatever the truth here, it worked because
They were never caught.
they were never caught.
For the time, someone committed the perfect crime.
Yeah. Yes. A crime inside a locked room where no one was seen coming and going, left no prints. That was the other thing that was interesting to me.
But DNA wise now, leaving those,
Oh, the
the
sick-
shell
yeah.
and the bullet, it would have
You're
killed you, right? For then it was the perfect crime.
especially if you smoked the cigar.
Right. For now that would have been like the worst criminal ever.
would've.
So isn't it funny how things change?
Mm-hmm. 1920, perfect crime. Yes.
I liked this.
Yeah, this was
It doesn't bother me as much
Interesting.
that you left me with no closure on this one, but I do have it leaves you with more questions than answers.
It does, most definitely. And I'm sure that there's a lot of cases out there like that. But I liked the uniqueness of this. Like, I've never thought about the game Bridge. I didn't know that there was like a godfather of Bridge, but apparently there is. And you can even publish books about them.
Yeah,
and
boring books.
Just the things that you do with a life, man. 47 years old. He only lived to 47.
I'm going to publish a book about playing Trivial Pursuit. It's going to be a short book.
Should publish a book about euchre. It'd be very complicated.
Oh my gosh. It's really not. I mean, yeah, the book reads like this. You have to play it to know how to play.
Yeah.
I can't explain this to you because it's not going to make any sense if I put it in writing.
The prerequisite to it is that you have to have a Verner's next to you.
Yes.
While you learn and play.
And maybe some Jameson.
Right. If you're so inclined.
To mix that all up.
Right. All right. Am I bathing you? Are you bathing me?
No, go ahead.
Would you like to go? Okay. I'm bringing us a brain. It is a brain bath only because I find humor in the language, but this is not meant to offend anyone. And I'm really just trying to clear something up that has been breaking the internet.
Okay.
You know how newspaper article or headlines can be shared over and over again, and people just read the headline and then they never click on the article to gain deeper understanding.
Well, and some media outlets do just a shit job with titles.
Well, sometimes they purposely do it for shares and don't care what misunderstanding comes about it. And
Couldn't agree more.
This is really what happened here, and it's unfair, truly, that this happened. But I'm here to clear up something that broke the internet. So this is the headline. It says, Top Cancer Charity apologizes for using the word cervix instead of trans-friendly front hole.
Huh?
Which I am just dying. I love the term front hole.
Front hole?
Front hole. That is, it's not your cervix, it's your front hole.
But it's not even in the front. It's deep in there.
Agreed. And I really don't, I think it's more in the middle.
Well,
I don't know that it's in the front.
I mean, if you just...
If I'm laying facing you, I suppose it is in the front. But if I'm standing up, it sits in the middle.
But that's not the front hole. That's deeper.
It is much deeper. Your cervix is much deeper.
Did a man write this?
So, well, here's the thing. So here's the article that people just keep sharing this headline. And then that article, it got to the point where the article was no longer attached and it was just the headline that is being shared. Okay. This is not, you guys.
Who's offended by the word cervix?
Well, what it did is it sparked all this controversy of, oh my gosh, now we can't use the word cervix. I'm a female. I have a cervix.
Gotcha.
No. That is not, that's truly what people are taking from this.
But that's not what the article was
Not
about.
at all. What the article was intended for is actually in a publication that was directed specifically just for the trans community. Okay. They're using the word front hole. Has nothing to do with if you're male, female, whatever, right? They completely took it out of context. The cancer charity was not trying to, we're not trying to cancel the word cervix, is what I'm saying. Okay.
But people got offended because that's how they read the headline.
They did. And so
that's
they're
how
like,
it was worded.
Right. Exactly.
Even I was momentarily concerned that we were trying to cancel the word cervix because it's a thing.
Right. No.
It exists.
It does exist.
It's a body part.
It is a medical term for a body part.
You know what word I don't like? Urethra.
I know.
It's a terrible word.
Absolutely terrible word.
It sounds like it should be the name of a singer, not the name of a body part.
Do you know once when I was intoxicated, I told someone that I couldn't feel my urethra.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And they were like, first of all, how can you say the word urethra when you're drunk?
It's impressive.
And second of all, can you usually feel your urethra?
Yes.
Like, well, when I need to pee,
Correct.
certainly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I 100% agree with you.
Yes. And I was trying to say, I'm at my limit because I
drunk.
can't.
I'm numb.
Yeah, I'm numb. Exactly. But I just knew the medical term and they were a little flabbergasted by that, I think. You know? Then there's other days that I can't say a common name on here. Like, what was that guy's name? Schlander Gel? No,
Von Schlong.
Von Schlong. He's just Von Schlong. So yeah, I wanted to clear this up. I giggled at the word front hole. I really did.
Oh my God.
But this isn't, this article is not about, it was for the trans community. The actual publication was for the trans community. So they were using that word totally out of context, like totally just for them. We're not canceling the word cervix. Calm down, everybody. This wasn't what the article's original intention was for.
Is it bad that I want to call people front holes now?
My gosh, you're just speaking with your front hole.
Which is far better than the people that speak with their back hole.
That's so true.
So
true.
I know those people. They're full of shit.
They sure are. I encounter them more often than not, actually. Yeah. So I just...
Thank you, Charnell.
I got a little chuckle, but also just wanted to kind of calm everyone down. It's going to be okay. Understand.
If all else fails, go read the full article.
Exactly.
Maybe it will piss you off more. Maybe it will give you some justification. And maybe you'll walk away thinking, God, the media outlet that gave this the headline, they really were just trying to stir some shit
For
up.
sure. What was their original intention?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To piss people off
Yep.
and make headlines everywhere.
Gain understanding before
get likes
you
and
freak
shares.
out. It was exactly what it was for, was likes and shares. And I hate that because there's already enough hate thrown at the trans community for absolutely no reason. Like, stop it. So don't...
Everybody's offended by everything.
Right. Don't
you know what I do?
perpetuate this.
I don't read much news. I know that there are important things that I need to watch, and every once in a while I watch the nightly news or whatever, or I look up a legitimate news source. I also fact check articles that I read because that's who I am as a person,
sure.
and I don't just take people's word for it when they share something. I hate it. I don't like
Exactly.
it. I don't like what's happened.
Nope. No, me neither. So
All right,
I just
are
wanted
you
to...
stroking Von Schlong?
You know, oh my God, our positive penis that was sent to us by a lovely listener, I think should be renamed Von Schlong.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And he looks so friendly, though.
Does. Who's to say Von Schlong is not friendly?
He might be.
Anyway, thank you all so much for listening to us. And we hope that you continue to do that even after we said Von Schlong several times on this episode. And hey, if you want to be a Patreon and get so many more episodes of us, really unhinged. Some of our episodes get a little wacky for our Patreons. Feel free to click the link down there. You can do that. It supports us. It keeps us on air, keeps us creating content. And yeah, did I leave anything out, Megan?
No, join us on social media. Look
Yeah.
us up on the Facebook.
Reach out to us.
We have a good time. Send us case suggestions. Feel free to email.
And have a fabulous freaking rest of your day.
Well, until next time, y'all, keep it curious.
Keep listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.